CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
A Saanich teacher who was placed on leave after showing his elementary students a sexually charged video before Christmas once again finds himself out of the classroom. Joe Winkler is a teacher at Brentwood Elementary School. The district confirms he is once again on a leave of absence but will not say why. Sources tell CTV News Winkler is taking time off after a lesson he gave students last Friday. They say he was teaching a course on mythology that included online content, and some parents objected to an image on a website that he was showing the students. Parents say the school sent them a letter saying that Joe Winkler is no longer teaching their children. Winkler, as you may recall, was placed on leave late last year after showing students a video which some parents found inappropriate. A pod of killer whales rode the waves off Tofino over the weekend, coming so close that surfers had to scramble to shore. Take a look. From the video, it looks as though the orcas were feeding on some seals, using the surf to corral and then drive them to the shoreline. At one point, you can see the group of seals trying to make a swim for it. That brings the hungry pod even closer to a group of surfers. After watching some of the action in the water,
whoa,
the whales then swam off. Well, what a difference a day makes. After yesterday's windstorm, today's sunny morning was a welcome change and the perfect weather in which to launch the 37th annual Flower Count. The annual Flower Count is a light-hearted event meant to promote Greater Victoria as an attractive shoulder season holiday destination. The event kicked off at the Bay Centre this morning with the Mayor's flower arranging competition, and our very own Astrid Brownschmidt was one of the judges. Last year, more than 2 billion blooms were tallied, despite a chilly spring last year. This year, with the weather turning, the organizers are optimistic that the numbers will be even higher.
We're seeing a lot of things coming into bloom. Daffodils are showing, as well as a number of flowering trees are starting to kick in. So we're seeing it. Even some little cyclamen buried away underneath some of the shrubs are now starting to come out as well. So they're there. It's just a turning point right now. A few warm, sunny days will help.
And Astrid, who is judging here, says those sunny days are coming. The flower count runs till March 4th. If you'd like to add your blossoms to the tally, go to flowercount.com. The competition was stiff, but the Township of Esquimalt won this morning's flower arranging competition. Repeat win, the second year in a row. World news tonight, a hot air balloon burst into flames in Egypt today and crashed. 19 tourists on board were killed. The balloon was flying over the ancient city of Luxor when it caught fire. The gas canister then exploded. That sent the balloon and its passengers plummeting 300 meters to the ground. There were 3 survivors taken to the hospital. The tourists were from Britain, France, Hong Kong, and Japan. 3 men are in custody after a backroom scuffle in a small town in northwestern Alberta and a courthouse there. It began with a sheriff being shot in the hand, and then there was a short-lived escape in the sheriff's van. The bullets started flying shortly before noon in the small town of Whitecourt, Alberta, northwest of Edmonton. 2 local men were making a first court appearance after a drug bust last week. Witnesses say a scuffle broke out in the court's back room, and when the sheriff went to check it out, shots were fired. The 2 escapees then took off in the sheriff's van, but they were picked up later, arrested at a nearby farmhouse. RCMP also detained a 3rd man at that farmhouse. The sheriff was shot in the hand, said to be okay. Police will not confirm if the sheriff was shot with his own gun. 5 First Nations signed pre-treaty deals with the provincial government in Victoria today. The ceremony was part of the government's Incremental Treaty Agreements program, which offers partial settlements with First Nations ahead of final land claims agreements. Leaders from the Songhees First Nation, the Malahat First Nation, and the Nanoose First Nation were all on hand for the signing. They say this agreement will provide a bright future for their people.
This is just the start. You know, the land question in BC has been ongoing for 150 years, and you know, this is just laying the foundation.
It signifies a lot of hard work and commitment from our leadership over the past number of years, and it gives us a great sense of optimism to look forward to make some plans for our nation.
We know that the most comprehensive framework for First Nations for their self-governance, for their self-sufficiency, is to have their own treaty, to allow them to come out from under the Indian Act. So this now allows us to get that one step closer towards that, and I think today is historic in that sense.
Land that will transfer to the Songhees First Nation includes a parking lot near the legislature and the site of a liquor store in Esquimalt. A pair of 3-hectare properties in the regional district of Nanaimo will transfer to the Nanoose First Nation. Well, one of Victoria's fastest growing running groups is celebrating its 4th birthday. It's called Every Step Counts, and it includes people who are living with mental health issues, addiction, and those who are struggling with chronic poverty. One step at a time. The number of participants has grown from 6 members to nearly 500, ranging in age from 20 to 78. Their structured walks and runs happen twice a week, and organizers say pounding the pavement promotes fitness, friendship, and a sense of community.
Hats off or shoes on to Every Step Counts in its 4th year. Participants are there for their own reason, but through exercise we get to a new place.
In a way, I kind of feel proud to be a part of it because I am a part of that group that's bringing so much more to the community than I could myself.
Without that community support and funding, Every Step Counts couldn't survive. Pledges to sponsor runners from the group and the TC 10K are now being accepted online through koolaid.org. A crash that closed the Nanaimo Parkway on Friday morning has now resulted in charges against a 24-year-old man. Happened about 7:30 Friday morning. A pickup truck crossed the center line, then rolled over, colliding with 2 other cars. Both drivers of those cars were injured, one of them seriously. The 24-year-old driving the truck has been charged with driving without due care and has been charged with violating conditions on his new driver's license after blowing over the limit on a breathalyzer. The Snuneymuxw First Nation in Nanaimo is also celebrating progress, getting the 2nd of its 2 reserves on an upgraded water system. For decades, the First Nation ran on well water, but Health Canada shut that down nearly 20 years ago over health concerns. Since then, water has been trucked in, but now, after many months of working with the city, the water will soon be flowing on both reserves.
Getting a connection to the city water supply out here really opens up the opportunity for people to use the land in the best possible way. It provides fire protection for all of the existing homes in a way that hasn't been provided up until now. And so it's really going to make a big difference in the lives of the Snuneymuxw.
The first reserve to run a water system from the city was finished last year. The project is expected to be finished by the end of March. It'll benefit as many as 70 homes. Well, jazz band students in Nanaimo are calling this past weekend a big win after playing in a major festival in the U.S. Schools from all over the West Coast gather in Moscow, Idaho every year for the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival. Several groups from Wellington Secondary's band spent 5 days at the event. Its grade 9-10 jazz band received the festival's highest honor when they were asked to play on the main stage Saturday night.
It's just amazing to me that we're competing against schools in the U.S. that have 3,000 students, and here's Wellington with 900 students, and 72 of our band students went, and we've got some great recognition. A lot of individual students got recognition, and it just means that these kids are working hard and loving what they're doing with jazz music.
It was nuts because there's so many schools there, and like so many extra people in the schools. And Wellington's kind of a smaller school in comparison to the other ones, so I'm just really lucky to be able to play.
What a great experience for the kids. The main stage was set up at the University of Idaho's football dome, which houses 20,000 people. Students spend the days learning from professional jazz musicians and performing. Only 7 bands are chosen out of 300 schools to play on the main stage at the festival each year.